You think you know power? You think a $10,000 suit and a black card give you the right to treat people like trash? Harrison Sterling, the CEO of Sterling Dynamics, certainly thought so. He walked into Le Jardin that night, thinking he owned the world, ready to crush a nobody waitress just for a laugh in front of his wealthy friends. He poured wine on her. He threw his money at her feet. He laughed in her face. But he made one fatal calculation. He didn't check who she really was. He wasn't humiliating a servant. He was humiliating the one woman who held his entire future in the palm of her hand. And when the truth came out, let's just say, money can't buy you a way out of this nightmare. Watch until the end, because the revenge she serves is colder than ice. The sliding glass doors of Le Jardin, arguably the most exclusive restaurant in downtown Chicago, hissed open to reveal Harrison Sterling. He didn't just walk in, he invaded the space. At 42, Harrison was the face of the new tech boom, CEO of Sterling Dynamics, a man whose face graced the cover of Forbes last month under the headline, "The Ruthless Visionary." He was handsome in a sharp, predatory way, wearing a bespoke Brioni suit that cost more than most people's cars. Trailing behind him were his entourage, his VP of Operations, Brad Gentry, a man who laughed too loud at Harrison's jokes, and a young, terrified-looking personal assistant named Chloe, who was clutching 3 iPhones as if they were holy relics. "Table for Sterling, obviously," Harrison barked at the maitre d', bypassing the reservation podium entirely. The maitre d', a man named Pierre who had seen presidents and royalty dine here without making half this much noise, stiffened but kept his professional smile. "Of course, Mr. Sterling. Right this way. We have the corner booth prepared as you requested." Harrison didn't acknowledge him. He was already scanning the room, checking who was watching him. He thrived on eyes. He needed them. They were seated in the VIP section, an elevated platform surrounded by velvet ropes. It was the throne room of the restaurant. "Champagne," Harrison announced, sitting down and spreading his arms across the back of the leather booth. "The 98 Dom Perignon. And don't make me wait." That was when Sarah Jenkins walked up to the table. Sarah was 24, with tired eyes and a uniform that was clean but slightly too large for her slender frame. She had been working a double shift. Her feet ached in her non-slip shoes, and her mind was occupied with the tuition bill for her master's degree in international business sitting on her kitchen counter. She adjusted her apron and put on her best service smile. "Good evening, gentlemen," she said, her voice soft and professional. "My name is Sarah, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. I see Pierre has already sent for the sommelier, but can I start you with some sparkling water while you wait?" Harrison looked at her. He didn't look at her face. He looked at her shoes, then her cheap watch, then the loose thread on her apron. He sneered. "Water?" Harrison scoffed, looking at Brad. "Do I look like I came here for hydration, Brad? I came here to celebrate the acquisition of the Kensington account." "Right, absolutely, Harrison." Brad chuckled nervously. Harrison turned his cold blue eyes back to Sarah. "I don't want water, sweetheart. I want someone competent. You look like you just rolled out of a Goodwill bin. Is this really the standard at Le Jardin now? Letting the help look like this?" Sarah felt the heat rise in her cheeks. The restaurant was quiet enough that the tables nearby had turned to look. She swallowed the lump in her throat. She had dealt with rude customers before, but there was something specifically venomous about this man. "I apologize if my appearance offends you, sir," Sarah said, keeping her voice steady. "I'll go check on that champagne for you immediately." She turned to leave, but Harrison wasn't done. He needed a show. "Hey," he snapped, snapping his fingers loudly. "I didn't dismiss you." Sarah stopped and turned back. "Yes, sir." Harrison picked up the crystal water glass on the table. It was empty. "I changed my mind. I am thirsty. Pour me some water. But do it properly. One hand behind your back, like a real servant." The restaurant went silent. Even Brad looked uncomfortable. Harrison, maybe we should just—" "Quiet, Brad," Harrison hissed. He stared at Sarah. "Well?" "I'm waiting." Sarah took a deep breath. She reached for the carafe on the side table. She placed her left hand behind her back, exactly as he asked, and began to pour the water into his glass. Her hand trembled slightly, not from fear, but from a rage she was struggling to suppress. As the water reached the rim, Harrison suddenly jerked his hand, knocking the glass. Splash! Ice-cold water soaked the front of Harrison's $3,000 jacket. "You clumsy idiot!" Harrison roared, jumping to his feet. The chair screeched against the floor. I'm so sorry, sir. You moved your hand," Sarah gasped, grabbing a napkin to help him. "Don't touch me." Harrison swatted her hand away hard. The napkin fluttered to the floor. "Look what you did. This is Italian silk. You think your minimum wage paycheck can cover this? You think you're even worth the thread on this cuff?" "It was an accident," Sarah said, her voice hardening slightly. "You hit the glass." "I hit the glass?" Harrison laughed, a cruel, barking sound. He looked around the room, inviting the audience to join him. "Did you hear that? The waitress blames the customer. Unbelievable!" He reached for the bottle of red wine that had just been placed on the table by a passing busboy. It was an expensive Cabernet, heavy and dark. "You like making messes?" Harrison asked, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Let's see how you like it." Before anyone could react, Harrison uncorked the bottle and upended it over Sarah. The dark red liquid cascaded over her head. It dripped down her hair, soaked into her white collar, and stained her apron the color of blood. It ran into her eyes, stinging and blinding her. She stood frozen, the shock paralyzing her, as the cold wine soaked through to her skin. Gasps erupted around the dining room. A woman at the next table covered her mouth. Harrison tossed the empty bottle onto the table with a clatter. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a thick money clip, and peeled off 5 $100 bills. He crumbled them into a ball and threw them at Sarah's wine-soaked chest. "There," Harrison sneered. "That's for your dry cleaning. Now get out of my sight before I have you fired and blacklisted from every restaurant in Chicago." Sarah stood there, dripping wet, the smell of tannins filling her nose. She looked down at the crumpled bills on the floor. Then she slowly looked up. She wiped the wine from her eyes with her thumb. She didn't cry. She didn't run. She smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was a terrifyingly calm smile. "Keep your money, Mr. Sterling," Sarah said, her voice cutting through the silence of the room like a razor blade. "You're going to need it." Harrison laughed as Sarah turned and walked away, her wet shoes squishing against the polished mahogany floor. "Did you hear that?" Harrison sat back down, grabbing a napkin to dab at the few drops of water on his lapel. "She thinks she's tough. I give her 10 minutes before she's crying in the alley out back." "That was intense, Harrison," Brad said, loosening his tie. "Do you think we should—" "We should order the steak," Harrison interrupted, opening the menu. "And tell Pierre I want a different server. Someone who knows their place." Back in the kitchen, the chaos was palpable. The kitchen staff, usually a well-oiled machine of shouting and sizzling pans, had gone quiet as Sarah walked in. She looked like she had survived a war zone. "Sarah!" The executive chef, a towering man named Gordon who had a temper with food but a soft spot for his team, rushed over. "My God, what happened? Did a shelf collapse?" "Table 4, Sarah said calmly. She walked over to the sink and grabbed a towel, wiping her face. Harrison Sterling. Gordon's face darkened. That arrogant prick! I'm going out there. I'm throwing him out. No, Sarah said sharply. She put a hand on Gordon's arm. You will do no such thing. He wants a reaction. He wants to see us lose control. If you throw him out, he spins the story that the service was bad and the staff was aggressive. He wins. So we just let him abuse you? Gordon demanded, slamming a ladle down. He poured wine on you, Sarah. That's assault. Technically, yes, Sarah mused, looking at her ruined uniform. But I have a better idea. She reached into her pocket. Miraculously, her phone was dry. She unlocked it and navigated to a secure messaging app. She typed a single message. Code red. The wolf is at the door. Initiate Protocol 7. She hit send. Sarah, a timid voice came from the pantry. It was Chloe, Harrison's assistant. She had slipped away from the table under the guise of using the restroom. She looked horrified. I saw what he did, Chloe whispered, her eyes wide. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. He's a monster. I've been trying to quit for months, but he says he'll ruin my career if I leave. Sarah looked at the young assistant. She saw the fear, the exhaustion. She softened. It's not your fault, Chloe. But tell me something. Why is he really here tonight? The Kensington deal isn't closed yet. I read the Financial Times. Kensington is holding out. Chloe blinked, surprised that a waitress knew about the intricacies of high-stakes mergers. He's meeting someone, a silent investor. He's supposed to show up in 20 minutes. Harrison is desperate. If he doesn't get this funding, Sterling Dynamics misses payroll next week. He's leveraging everything he owns on this dinner. Sarah's eyes lit up. A cold, hard light. Is that so? Sarah murmured. He's waiting for Mr. Arthur Pendleton, isn't he? Chloe's jaw dropped. How do you know that name? Nobody knows that name. It's confidential. Sarah didn't answer. She just peeled off the wine-soaked apron and tossed it into the laundry bin. Underneath, she was wearing a simple black t-shirt and black trousers. Go back to the table, Chloe, Sarah said. And when Mr. Pendleton arrives, don't be surprised if he doesn't want to sit with Mr. Sterling. Chloe hesitated, then nodded and ran back to the dining room. Sarah turned to Chef Gordon. Gordon, I need to use your office, and I need the private line. Sarah, what is going on? Gordon asked, confused. You're just a part-time server while you finish your degree, right? Sarah paused at the door of the office. She looked back at the kitchen crew, the dishwashers, the sous chefs, the people Harrison Sterling treated like invisible furniture. Not exactly, Gordon, Sarah said. My full name isn't Sarah Jenkins. It's Sarah Jenkins Pendleton. Arthur Pendleton is my father. The kitchen went dead silent. And, Sarah continued, a small smirk playing on her lips, I own 51% of this building. I just like to work the floor to make sure the management is treating my employees right. Usually the problems are internal. But tonight? Tonight the problem is at table 4. She stepped into the office and locked the door. Outside, in the dining room, Harrison Sterling was complaining about the bread. It's stale, he muttered, tossing a roll onto the plate. Everything in this place has gone downhill. I don't know why Pendleton insisted on meeting her. The man has billions but zero taste. Maybe it's sentimental? Brad suggested, taking a sip of his whiskey. Sentiment is for poor people, Harrison retorted. He checked his Rolex, a solid gold Submariner. He's 5 minutes late. I hate lateness. It shows a lack of discipline. Suddenly, the front doors opened again. The atmosphere in the room shifted. A man walked in who radiated old money. He was older, perhaps 65, with silver hair and a walking stick topped with a silver lion's head. He wore a tweed suit that looked older than Harrison, but cost 10 times as much. It was Arthur Pendleton, the man who controlled the venture capital of half the Midwest. Harrison immediately straightened up. He buttoned his damp jacket, trying to hide the water stain. He pasted on his best winning smile, the one that had charmed Wall Street for a decade. "Arthur," Harrison called out, standing up and waving his hand. "Over here. We have the best booth." Arthur Pendleton stopped. He looked at Harrison. His face was unreadable. He didn't move toward the booth. Instead, he turned to Pierre, the maitre d'. "I believe my daughter is expecting me," Arthur said, his voice deep and gravelly. "Is she ready?" Harrison froze. Daughter? He didn't know Pendleton had a daughter. He thought the old man was a recluse. Pierre bowed low. "Yes, Mr. Pendleton. She is waiting for you in the owner's suite. She suggested you might want to dine there, away from the riff-raff." Pierre's eyes flicked briefly, deliberately, toward Harrison. Harrison blinked. "Arthur? What is this?" "We have a reservation. We have the term sheets ready to sign." Arthur Pendleton slowly turned his body toward Harrison. He looked him up and down, seeing the wet stain on the jacket, the arrogance radiating off him even now. "I don't do business with men who lack discipline, Mr. Sterling," Arthur said. "Discipline? I run a Fortune 500 company." Harrison sputtered, his face turning red. "I am the definition of discipline." "And yet," Arthur said calmly, "I received a notification 5 minutes ago from the building's security feed. It seems you have a habit of wasting good wine and abusing the staff." Harrison's blood ran cold. That was nothing. Just a clumsy waitress. She ruined my suit. I was teaching her a lesson." "A lesson?" Arthur repeated. He tapped his cane on the floor. "Well, Harrison, it seems school is in session. Because the clumsy waitress you just assaulted isn't just a server." The door to the kitchen swung open. Sarah walked out. She wasn't wearing the wine-stained uniform anymore. She was wearing a stunning, tailored cream pantsuit that she kept in the office for emergencies. Her hair was slicked back, wet but looking intentionally styled. She wore no jewelry, but she carried herself with an authority that made Harrison look like a child playing dress-up. She walked right past Harrison's table, ignoring him completely, and went to her father. She kissed Arthur on the cheek. "Hello, Daddy," she said. "Sorry I'm a bit sticky. I had a run-in with a pest." Harrison's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked from Sarah to Arthur, the pieces crashing together in his mind like a train wreck. "Wait," Harrison whispered. You're... Sarah turned to him. The warmth vanished from her face. "I'm Sarah Pendleton," she said. "And as of 5 minutes ago, I am the new acting chairwoman of the Pendleton Venture Group, which means, Harrison, I'm the one you have to pitch your deal to." She walked over to table 4, picked up the bottle of 98 Dom Perignon that Harrison had ordered but hadn't opened yet. She looked at the label. "We won't be needing this here," she said. "Pierre, please have security escort Mr. Sterling and his associates out. They are trespassing." "Trespassing!" Harrison screamed, the vein in his forehead bulging. "I have a reservation. You can't kick me out. Do you know who I am?" "I know exactly who you are," Sarah said, stepping closer to him until she was inches from his face. "You're a man who is about to lose everything. Now get out of my restaurant before I have you arrested for assault. I still have the wine-stained shirt as evidence." Harrison looked around. The entire restaurant was watching. Phones were out. People were recording. He realized with a sickening lurch that this wasn't just a rejection. It was a public execution of his reputation. "This isn't over," Harrison snarled, grabbing his briefcase. "You think you can embarrass me? I'll buy this dump and turn it into a parking lot. You couldn't afford a parking spot in this city right now, Harrison, Sarah replied coolly. Check your stock price. Harrison froze. He pulled out his phone. The screen showed a notification from Bloomberg. Breaking. Sterling Dynamics loses Kensington bid. Stock plummets 14% in after-hours trading. How? Harrison stammered. The Kensington deal. That wasn't public. I made a call, Sarah said, checking her nails. Kensington is owned by my mother's holding company. I told her you had a hygiene problem. She hates messy people. Harrison stared at her, his world crumbling in real time. Security, Pierre called out. 2 large men in black suits materialized from the shadows. They took Harrison by the arms. Get off me, Harrison shouted as they dragged him toward the door. You'll regret this. All of you. As the doors hissed shut behind the screaming CEO, the restaurant erupted into spontaneous applause. Sarah let out a long breath and looked at her father. I'm sorry you had to see that. Arthur chuckled, patting her shoulder. My dear, I haven't had that much fun since the 80s. Shall we eat? I'm starving. But as they walked toward the owner's suite, Sarah's phone buzzed again. It was a text from an unknown number. You think you won? You just started a war. Watch your back, princess. Sarah stared at the screen. Harrison wasn't done. And deep down, she knew that humiliating a narcissist like Harrison Sterling was dangerous. He wouldn't just sue, he would come for blood. She looked at her father, smiling, but her hand gripped her phone tight. Yes, she whispered to herself. Let's eat. The penthouse office of Sterling Dynamics offered a panoramic view of the Chicago skyline, a view that usually made Harrison Sterling feel like a god. Tonight, however, it felt like a cage. Harrison paced the floor, kicking a trash can across the room. It slammed into the floor-to-ceiling glass with a deafening crack, but the glass held. 14%, Brad, Harrison screamed, pointing at the massive monitor on the wall. My net worth dropped by $80 million in 2 hours because some spoiled waitress decided to play hero. Brad Gentry sat on the leather sofa, looking pale. He was scrolling through Twitter on his phone. It's trending, Harrison. Sterling Meltdown is the #1 hashtag. Someone uploaded a video from a different angle. It shows you throwing the money. People are calling for a boycott. I don't care about the internet peasants, Harrison roared. I care about the SEC. I care about the board of directors. They're calling an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. If I lose the Kensington deal and the public trust, they'll vote me out as CEO by lunch. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, his hands shaking with rage. He took a swig, the burn grounding him. He needed to think. He was Harrison Sterling. He didn't lose. He destroyed. Get Victoria Stone on the line, Harrison ordered, his voice dropping to a low growl. Brad's eyes widened. Victoria, the crisis manager. Harrison, she charges $5,000 an hour and she plays dirty. If you call her, there's no going back. Call her. 20 minutes later, the face of Victoria Stone appeared on the video conference screen. She was a woman who looked like she was carved out of marble, cold, sharp, and beautiful in a terrifying way. Harrison, Victoria said, her voice smooth. I saw the video. You look like a petulant child. It's not a good look. I didn't call you for a critique, Victoria. I called you for a solution, Harrison snapped. Sarah Pendleton. She humiliated me. She used inside information to tank my deal with Kensington. That's illegal. Victoria raised an eyebrow. Is it? Or did she just tell her mother that you're a jerk? There's a difference. I don't care about the difference. Harrison slammed his fist on the desk. I want her destroyed. I want the Pendleton name dragged through the mud so deep that Arthur cuts her off just to save his own reputation. If I'm going down, I'm taking their entire empire with me." Victoria tapped a pen against her chin. "Arthur Pendleton is old school. He values honor and integrity above profit. If we can prove that his daughter isn't just a victim, but a perpetrator, that she orchestrated this whole thing to steal corporate secrets, then the narrative flips." "How do we do that?" Brad asked. Victoria smiled. "Harrison, you always record your business meetings for quality assurance, don't you?" "Yes," Harrison said, patting his lapel where a tiny, high-definition button camera was hidden. "But the footage puts me in a bad light." "Raw footage does," Victoria corrected, "but edited footage tells a story, and we need to plant something. Brad, does Sarah still have access to the restaurant's Wi-Fi logs?" "I assume so," Brad said. "And," Harrison added, a dark idea forming, "Chloe, my assistant. She was talking to Sarah. I saw them whispering." "Perfect," Victoria said. "We don't need to hack Sarah. We need to make it look like Sarah hacked you. We're going to frame her for corporate espionage. We'll claim she used a skimming device on your table to steal the Kensington negotiation data from your phone. Then we leak that she planned to sell it to Sterling's competitors." Harrison smiled for the first time that night. It was the smile of a shark scenting blood in the water. "And the best part?" Harrison whispered. "I have the perfect person to plant the evidence." He turned to the door. "Chloe, get in here." Chloe entered the office, trembling. She had been crying. She held a box of her personal items. I was just leaving, Mr. Sterling. I quit." Harrison walked over to her. He didn't yell. He was terrifyingly calm. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Chloe flinched. "You don't quit, Chloe." "Not yet," Harrison said softly. "You see, I know about your sick mother. I know about the medical bills. I know you're 3 months behind on rent." Chloe looked up, tears in her eyes. "Please." "I'm going to wire $100,000 into your account tonight," Harrison said. "It will pay for your mother's surgery. It will save her life." Chloe sobbed, a mix of relief and terror. "Thank you. Thank you. But," Harrison tightened his grip on her shoulder, "you have to do one little thing for me first. You're going to go back to Le Jardin tomorrow to pick up a lost item. And while you're there, you're going to connect this USB drive to their main server." Chloe stared at the silver drive in his hand. "What? What is it?" "Insurance," Harrison lied. "Just do it, and your mother lives. Refuse, and I'll make sure you never work in this country again, and the bank forecloses on your house by Friday." Chloe looked at the drive, then at Harrison's cold, dead eyes. She took the drive. The next morning, the sun shone brightly on the Pendleton estate, a sprawling mansion on the shores of Lake Michigan. Sarah sat on the terrace, drinking coffee. For the first time in years, she felt light. She had exposed a bully. She had stood up for herself and her staff. Her phone was buzzing with messages of support from friends and employees. Arthur walked out, holding a tablet. He looked grim. "Morning, Dad," Sarah smiled. "Did you sleep well?" Arthur didn't smile back. He placed the tablet on the table. "Sarah, what is this?" Sarah looked at the screen. It was a headline from the Financial Chronicle, the most respected business paper in the city. "Scandal at Le Jardin. Heiress accused of insider trading and corporate espionage." "What?" Sarah laughed nervously. "This is ridiculous. It's just Harrison trying to spin the story." "Read it," Arthur said, his voice stern. Sarah scrolled down. The article claimed that an anonymous source had provided evidence that Sarah Pendleton had used sophisticated skimming technology embedded in the tables at Le Jardin to steal data from high-profile clients, including Harrison Sterling. It alleged that she used this stolen data to manipulate stock prices for her father's firm. "This is a lie," Sarah said, standing up. "Dad, you know this is a lie. I poured wine on him because he was abusive. That's it." "Is it?" Arthur tapped the screen again. "Then explain the video." Sarah clicked play. It was a video of the incident, but it was wrong. The angle was from Harrison's chest. It showed Sarah leaning in close, whispering something that was audio garbled. It showed her hand lingering near his phone. Then the video cut to her pouring the wine. But the audio of Harrison's insults had been removed. It looked like she attacked him unprovoked after stealing his data. The voiceover on the video was a security expert, analyzing her movements. "Notice how she checks the phone. Notice the signal jammer in her apron pocket." "That's a corkscrew," Sarah shouted at the screen. "Not a signal jammer. This is doctored." "And the documents?" Arthur asked. "The SEC just raided our downtown servers, Sarah. They found encrypted files from Sterling Dynamics on your personal workstation at the restaurant. Files that were uploaded last night." Sarah's blood ran cold. "Last night? I wasn't even there last night. I came straight here with you." "Someone was there," Arthur said. "The security logs show a login at 11:45 p.m. using your admin code." Sarah's mind raced. Only 2 people had her admin code, her and the shift manager. But the shift manager was loyal. Then she remembered. "Chloe," Sarah whispered. "Who?" "Harrison's assistant," Sarah said, realization dawning on her like a physical blow. "She came back. She said she left her scarf. I told the night manager to let her in. I trusted her. She looked so scared." Sarah sank into the chair. "He used her. He blackmailed her into planting the files." Arthur looked at his daughter. He wanted to believe her. But Arthur Pendleton was a man who built his empire on caution. "Sarah," Arthur said slowly, "until this is cleared up, I cannot have you associated with the Pendleton Group. The board is furious. Sterling is threatening a $1 billion lawsuit. He claims you stole the Kensington IP. "You're suspending me?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "Dad, I'm the victim here. In the court of public opinion, you are a corporate spy hiding behind a waitress apron," Arthur said sadly. "I have to protect the company. You are suspended from all duties, and I think it's best if you stay at the townhouse downtown. The press is already camping out at the front gate here." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. It wasn't the lawsuit that hurt. It was the doubt in her father's eyes. Harrison hadn't just attacked her. He had driven a wedge between her and the only family she had left. "Fine," Sarah said, her voice hardening. "I'll go. But I'm not going to hide. I'm going to prove he framed me." She grabbed her purse and keys. As she drove her modest sedan toward the city, the radio was already blasting the news. Harrison Sterling, CEO of Sterling Dynamics, has released a statement calling Sarah Pendleton a wolf in sheep's clothing and is demanding a federal investigation into the Pendleton Group's predatory practices. Sarah gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. She pulled over to the side of the road, her breathing shallow. She felt trapped. The evidence was digital, hard to disprove. The video was viral. Her father had sidelined her. She was alone. Her phone buzzed. It was a blocked number. She answered it. "Hello? Did you like the surprise?" Harrison's voice was smooth, dripping with satisfaction. "I told you, Sarah. You're a waitress. I'm a king. You don't strike a king and expect to walk away." "I know you planted those files," Sarah spat. "I know you forced Chloe to do it." "Chloe?" Harrison laughed. Chloe is currently on a flight to the Maldives. One-way ticket. You'll never see her again. And without her testimony, you have nothing. Just a server full of stolen data and a video of you assaulting a CEO. I will destroy you, Sarah whispered. You're already destroyed, Harrison replied. By tomorrow you'll be arrested. I'd suggest you get a comfortable cell. I hear Prison Orange is the new black. The line went dead. Sarah sat in the silence of her car. Panic began to set in. If Chloe was gone, she had no witness. The digital trail led straight to her. Harrison had won. She put her head on the steering wheel and let out a sob of frustration. Knock. Knock. Sarah jumped. Someone was tapping on her passenger window. She looked up, expecting a paparazzo. Instead, she saw a man in a hooded sweatshirt. He looked rough, unshaven, but she recognized the eyes. It was Brad Gentry, Harrison's VP. Sarah rolled down the window an inch. What do you want? Did he send you to gloat too? Brad looked around nervously, checking the street. Let me in, Sarah. Please, I'm not here for Harrison. Why should I trust you? Because, Brad whispered, pulling a small, battered hard drive from his pocket. Because he's crazy. He's not just framing you. He's cooking the books at Sterling Dynamics. If he goes down, I go down for aiding and abetting. And I'm not going to prison for that psycho. Sarah stared at the hard drive. What is that? She asked. The unedited video, Brad said, and the audio recording of him threatening Chloe. I recorded it through the door. Sarah unlocked the car. Brad slid into the passenger seat, smelling of stale coffee and fear. He doesn't know you have this, Sarah asked. No, Brad said. But he will soon. He tracks my phone. I left it in a cab going to the airport. We have maybe an hour before he realizes I've defected. Sarah looked at the hard drive, then at the road ahead. The despair vanished, replaced by a surge of adrenaline. An hour is all I need, Sarah said, putting the car into gear. Buckle up, Brad. We're going to pay a visit to the only person Harrison Sterling is actually afraid of. Who? Brad asked. Sarah merged onto the highway, the engine roaring. His wife, Sarah said. The car screeched to a halt in front of the iron gates of the Blackwood Equestrian Club, an hour north of Chicago. It was a place where old money went to escape new money. Are you sure she's here? Brad asked, wiping sweat from his forehead. He was clutching the hard drive like a lifeline. Harrison said she was in Europe. Harrison lies about everything, Sarah said, putting the car in park. I follow the society pages. Eleanor Sterling is chairing the charity polo match this weekend. She's here. They talked their way past security. Sarah used her Pendleton name, which still carried weight in circles that valued lineage over stock prices. They found Eleanor Sterling in the stables, grooming a massive black Hanoverian horse. Eleanor was 45, striking, with hair the color of steel and eyes that were even harder. She wore riding breeches and a fitted blazer, looking every inch the queen of this domain. She didn't look up as they approached. I'm not buying cookies, and I'm not donating to the policeman's ball, Eleanor said, her voice clipped. Go away. Mrs. Sterling, Sarah said, stepping into the stall's open doorway. My name is Sarah Pendleton, and I have something that belongs to your husband. Eleanor paused, the brush hovering over the horse's flank. She turned slowly. Her gaze raked over Sarah, then settled on Brad, who was cowering slightly behind her. Pendleton, Eleanor said, a flicker of recognition in her eyes. The waitress from the news. And Brad, Harrison's lapdog. What an odd pair. I'm not his lapdog anymore, Brad muttered. We don't have much time, Eleanor, Sarah said, dropping the formalities. Harrison has framed me for corporate espionage. He's planted false evidence. He's going to have me arrested today." Eleanor shrugged, turning back to her horse. "Sounds like a standard Tuesday for Harrison." "Why should I care? I'm divorcing the man. Whatever mess he's made is his problem, and yours." "Because," Sarah said, stepping closer, ignoring the massive horse shifting nervously, "if he succeeds in destroying my company, his stock price rebounds. He secures his assets, and you get half of a fortune in the divorce settlement." Eleanor stopped brushing. "And?" "And if you help me destroy him today," Sarah said, her voice low and dangerous, "I have proof of criminal activity, blackmail, extortion, and fraud. The government will seize his assets. You'll get nothing." Eleanor laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "So your pitch is, help me or you lose money?" "No," Sarah corrected. "My pitch is, help me, and I will ensure that the Pendleton Group buys out your share of Sterling Dynamics at a premium before the SEC freezes his accounts. You walk away with $50 million cash, clean, and you get to watch him burn." Eleanor turned fully around. She leaned against the stable wall, crossing her arms. "You have my attention. What do you have?" Sarah nodded to Brad. Brad pulled out his phone. He had transferred the audio file from the hard drive. He pressed play. Harrison's voice, tinny but unmistakable, filled the stable. "You don't quit, Chloe. I know about your sick mother. Do this, and she lives. Refuse, and I'll make sure. The bank forecloses on your house." Eleanor listened. Her expression didn't change, but her knuckles turned white where she gripped her riding crop. "He threatened a dying woman," Eleanor whispered. "I knew he was ruthless. I didn't know he was evil." "He also cooked the books," Brad added quickly. "He's been inflating user numbers for 3 quarters to keep the stock up. If that comes out, he goes to federal prison for 20 years. And you, Eleanor, as a board member, you could be implicated if you don't act." Eleanor looked at Brad, then at Sarah. The silence stretched, broken only by the snorting of the horse. "Harrison has an emergency board meeting in 2 hours," Eleanor said suddenly. "He's planning to ask for a vote of confidence to oust the current chairman and take full control, using the attack on his company as justification." "We know," Sarah said. "We need to be in that room." "Security won't let you in," Eleanor said. She walked over to a tack trunk and picked up her purse. She pulled out a keycard. "But they'll let me in," Eleanor said, a cruel smile forming on her red lips. "And under the company bylaws, specifically Article 15, Section C, the spouse of the CEO holds proxy voting rights in the event of proven moral turpitude or criminal investigation." She tossed the keycard to Sarah. "Drive," Eleanor commanded. "My horse can wait. My husband needs to be put down." The conference room at Sterling Dynamics was a fortress of glass and steel. 12 men and women in expensive suits sat around a 30-foot mahogany table. The air was thick with tension. Harrison Sterling stood at the head of the table, projecting an image of righteous fury. On the screen behind him was the doctored video of Sarah. "This was a calculated attack," Harrison shouted, slamming his hand on the table. "The Pendleton Group sent their heir to infiltrate our company, humiliate me publicly, and steal our proprietary algorithms. We are the victims here, and we must strike back." "Harrison," the chairman, a grey-haired man named Leonard, interjected cautiously. "These are serious accusations. The SEC is already asking questions. Maybe we should pause the merger talks and settle." "Settle?" Harrison scoffed. "Never! We sue them for billions. But to do that, I need full autonomy. I am asking the board to grant me emergency executive powers. Suspend the oversight committee. Let me finish this war," the board members murmured. They were scared. The stock was volatile. Harrison looked confident. "All in favor of granting Mr. Sterling emergency powers?" Harrison asked, raising his own hand. 4 hands went up slowly, then a 5th. "Wait," Leonard said. "We need a quorum. We are missing." Slam. The double doors to the boardroom didn't just open. They were thrown open with enough force to crack the plaster behind them. Harrison spun around. "Security! I said no interruptions!" Sarah walked in. She had changed in the car. She was back in her sharp cream suit, looking impeccable. "I object to the motion," Sarah said clearly, walking toward the table. "You!" Harrison pointed a shaking finger at her. "You have some nerve showing your face here. Police are on their way." "Let them come," Sarah said calmly. "I have plenty to show them." "Get her out!" Harrison screamed at the 2 security guards who appeared in the doorway. "Stand down!" A voice cut through the room like a whip. Eleanor Sterling stepped out from behind Sarah. She walked into the room with the grace of a predator. The security guards froze. They knew who signed their checks. "Eleanor?" Harrison's face went pale. "What? What are you doing here? This is a closed meeting." "I'm a shareholder, Harrison," Eleanor said, walking to the empty seat at the opposite end of the table. "And I'm here to exercise my proxy vote." "You don't have a vote," Harrison snarled. "We're separated." "Not legally," Eleanor replied coolly. "And I brought a guest, someone you might recognize." Brad Gentry stepped into the room. He looked terrified, but he locked eyes with Harrison and didn't look away. "Brad?" Harrison whispered. You traitor." "Brad has been very helpful," Sarah said, taking a position next to the screen. She pulled a USB drive from her pocket and plugged it into the AV console. "He provided us with the missing context for your little movie, Harrison." "Don't watch this!" Harrison shouted, lunging for the remote control on the table. "It's fake! It's AI generated!" Leonard, the chairman, stood up and blocked Harrison's path. "Sit down, Harrison. I want to see this." Sarah hit play. The screen changed. It wasn't the blurry, edited clip. It was high-definition footage from a different angle, the security camera Brad had accessed. The board watched in silence as Harrison poured the wine. They heard the real audio. "You think your minimum wage paycheck can cover this? I changed my mind. I am thirsty. Pour me some water." They saw him throw the money. They saw the cruelty. Then the audio shifted. The screen went black, and the recording of the blackmail played. "Just do it, and your mother lives. Refuse, and I'll make sure you never work in this country again." The silence in the boardroom was deafening. It was the sound of a career dying. Harrison stood there, his mouth opening and closing. He looked at the board members. They were looking at him with pure disgust. It's out of context," Harrison stammered. She provoked me. And Chloe is unstable. I was trying to help her." "Save it, Harrison," Eleanor said. She stood up. "Mr. Chairman, I move for a vote of no confidence. I also move for the immediate termination of Harrison Sterling as CEO for cause." "Seconded," Leonard said immediately. "You can't do this to me," Harrison screamed. "I built this company. I am Sterling Dynamics." "Not anymore," Sarah said. Harrison's eyes darted around the room. He saw the walls closing in. He lunged toward Brad. "You ruined me. I'll kill you." Before he could reach him, the security guards, the ones Harrison had summoned, stepped forward and grabbed him. Harrison struggled, flailing his arms, his suit jacket tearing at the shoulder. "Get your hands off me!" Harrison shrieked as they pinned his arms behind his back. The elevator doors pinged. 3 police officers walked in, led by a detective holding a warrant. "Harrison Sterling?" the detective asked. "This is a mistake," Harrison yelled, sweat pouring down his face. "We have a warrant for your arrest regarding the extortion of Chloe Miller and securities fraud." the detective said, pulling out handcuffs. "We received a file from a Mr. Gentry." As the cuffs clicked around Harrison's wrists, he looked up and locked eyes with Sarah. She wasn't smiling. She didn't look triumphant. She just looked pitying. "You know, Harrison," Sarah said, walking over to him as the police began to drag him away, "you were right about one thing." Harrison stopped struggling for a second to listen. "What?" he rasped. "Money really does talk," Sarah said. "But manners are priceless." Harrison screamed an obscenity as he was hauled out of his own boardroom, his cries echoing down the hallway. Sarah turned back to the table. The board members were stunned, looking at her and Eleanor. Leonard cleared his throat. "Miss Pendleton, on behalf of the board, I apologize. This is a disaster. We will issue a public retraction immediately." "Thank you, Leonard," Sarah said. She looked at Eleanor. "And as for the stock?" Eleanor smiled. "I believe the Pendleton Group is making a generous offer to buy a controlling interest. To stabilize the market, of course." Leonard looked defeated. He knew they had no choice. If Pendleton walked away now, Sterling Dynamics would collapse. "We're listening," Leonard said. Sarah walked over to the window, looking out at the city skyline. It was the same view Harrison had looked at the night before. But where he saw a kingdom to rule, she saw a community to serve. She pulled out her phone and texted her father. "It's done. The wolf is in the cage." But as she looked down at the street, watching the police car with flashing lights drive Harrison away, she felt a strange sensation. It wasn't just relief. It was the realization that the game wasn't quite over. Harrison was gone, but the system that created him, the entitlement, the arrogance, was still there. And she was just getting started. 3 months had passed since the arrest of Harrison Sterling, and the autumn leaves were beginning to fall on the streets of Chicago. Le Jardin had reopened after a 2-week renovation, but the changes were more than just cosmetic. The velvet ropes that used to separate the VIPs from the regular diners were gone. The lighting was warmer, the atmosphere less like a mausoleum for the ultra-rich, and more like a place where people actually wanted to eat. Sarah stood near the entrance, adjusting the cuff of her blazer. She wasn't wearing a waitress uniform anymore, nor was she wearing the severe power suits of a corporate raider. She wore a simple, elegant dress, comfortable enough to move in. She was the owner now, but she still spent every Friday night on the floor. "Table 6 needs a refill on water," a voice chirped beside her. Sarah turned to see Chloe smiling at her. Chloe looked like a different person. The dark circles under her eyes were gone, replaced by a glow of health. She was no longer a terrified personal assistant clutching iPhones. She was the new event coordinator for the restaurant. "I'm on it," Sarah said, picking up a carafe. "No, you're not," Chloe laughed, gently taking the pitcher from Sarah's hand. "You're the boss, remember? You have a meeting in the private suite." Sarah smiled. "Old habits die hard, Chloe. How is your mother?" "She's amazing," Chloe said, her eyes misting over slightly. The surgery was a complete success, and the fact that the Pendleton Foundation covered the recovery costs. "Sarah, I can never repay you. I was ready to betray you to save her." "You were a victim, Chloe, not a villain," Sarah said firmly. "Harrison put you in an impossible position. He's the one paying the price now." And he was. The news that morning had been gratifying. Harrison Sterling had been denied bail due to being a flight risk. The investigation into Sterling Dynamics had uncovered a Ponzi scheme level of fraud. He was facing 20 to 30 years in federal prison. His assets had been seized, his reputation incinerated. He was no longer the ruthless visionary on the cover of Forbes. He was inmate number 8940 at the Metropolitan Correctional Center. As for Eleanor Sterling, she had finalized the divorce in record time. She was currently in Tuscany, spending her settlement money on a vineyard. She had sent Sarah a case of wine with a note, to the waitress who served justice cold. Sarah walked back toward the office, passing the open kitchen. Chef Gordon gave her a thumbs up. The kitchen was louder now, happier. The fear that used to permeate the staff whenever a high-profile guest walked in was gone. Sarah had instituted a new policy. The customer is king, but the staff is the castle. You don't burn down the castle to please the king. She entered the owner's suite. Her father, Arthur Pendleton, was waiting for her. He was reviewing the quarterly projections for the Pendleton Group. "You're late," Arthur teased, looking over his reading glasses. "I was checking on the floor," Sarah said, sitting opposite him. "We're fully booked for the next 3 months. The rebrand is a hit." "It certainly is," Arthur agreed. "You know, the board was skeptical when you insisted on keeping the restaurant. They wanted to liquidate it. They said a CEO shouldn't be worried about table settings." "A CEO should worry about everything," Sarah replied, pouring herself a glass of sparkling water. Harrison forgot the small details. He forgot that the people serving the food are just as important as the people eating it. That arrogance cost him his company. Arthur closed the folder. "Speaking of the company, Sterling Dynamics is officially ours. We're renaming it next week. Pendleton Tech Solutions. Boring but stable." "I like boring," Sarah said. "Boring means no drama. Boring means no one throwing wine." Arthur chuckled. "I'm proud of you, Sarah. You didn't just save the deal. You saved the integrity of our name. You showed them that kindness isn't weakness." "I had good teachers," Sarah said softly. Suddenly, a commotion from the dining room drifted through the door. A loud voice, a snap of fingers. Sarah and Arthur exchanged a look. "Shall I handle it?" Arthur asked, reaching for his cane. "No," Sarah said, standing up and smoothing her dress. "I've got this." She walked back out into the dining room. A young man in an expensive, flashy suit, the kind Harrison used to wear, was berating a young busboy. "I said sparkling, not still," the young man shouted. "Are you deaf? Do you know how much I'm paying for this meal?" The restaurant went quiet. The busboy looked terrified. Sarah walked up to the table. She didn't shout. She didn't cause a scene. She simply placed a hand on the busboy's shoulder, signaling him to step back. "Is there a problem here, sir?" Sarah asked, her voice calm, but carrying the weight of absolute authority. The young man looked her up and down, sneering. "Yeah, the service is incompetent. Who are you?" "The manager." "I'm the owner," Sarah said, "and at Le Jardin, we have a dress code." The man laughed. "I'm wearing a $5,000 suit." "I'm not talking about your clothes," Sarah said, holding his gaze until his smile faltered. "I'm talking about your attitude. It's ugly, and it doesn't fit the ambiance of this establishment." She gestured to the door. "You have 2 choices," Sarah said. "You can apologize to my employee and finish your meal with the manners of a gentleman. Or you can take your $5,000 suit and eat at the burger joint across the street. But you will not raise your voice in my house again." The young man looked around. He saw the other diners staring at him. He saw the security guard near the door taking a step forward. He saw the steely resolve in Sarah's eyes, the same eyes that had taken down a titan of industry. He swallowed hard. The arrogance evaporated. I'm sorry," he mumbled to the busboy. "I've had a long day." "We all have long days," Sarah said, signaling the busboy to pour the water. "Enjoy your dinner." She walked away, head high, as the hum of conversation resumed, warmer and lighter than before. Sarah returned to the bar where Chloe was organizing the reservation list. "Nice save," Chloe whispered. Sarah picked up a glass of wine, a rich, dark Cabernet. She held it up to the light, admiring the color. It reminded her of that night, the cold splash, the humiliation. But the memory didn't sting anymore. It was just a reminder. "To the future," Sarah whispered to herself. She took a sip. It tasted like victory. And that is how Harrison Sterling learned the hardest lesson of his life. You can have all the money in the world, but if you're morally bankrupt, you're worth nothing. Sarah didn't just defeat him with wealth. She defeated him because she understood the value of people, from the boardroom to the busboy. Harrison thought he was crushing a nobody, but he ended up crowning a queen. What do you think? Was Sarah's revenge too harsh, or did Harrison get exactly what he deserved? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below, especially about how Eleanor swooped in at the end. If you enjoyed this story of justice served cold, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story about karma coming back around. Thanks for watching, and remember, be kind, because you never know who you're really talking to.